For almost 2 decades, football had 2 names at the top. Lionel Messi, Cristiano Ronaldo. They dominated the biggest stages, broke records, won trophies, and turned football into their own competition. But now, there's a teenager standing in the middle of their story, Lamine Yamal. And the crazy part? He's not trying to become the next Messi or the next Ronaldo. He's building something completely different. So is football finally entering a new era? Let's go back. For years, whenever someone asks, who's the best footballer in the world? The conversation almost always came back to 2 players, Messi or Ronaldo. Messi had the unbelievable dribbling, passing, and creativity. Ronaldo had the athleticism, goal scoring, and mentality. And instead of one replacing the other, they kept pushing each other. One would break a record, the other would break another. One would win a trophy, the other would come back stronger. Football fans didn't just watch them play. They watched a rivalry that lasted for years. Messi's story was completely different. He became famous for making football look almost effortless. He could receive the ball surrounded by defenders and somehow find a way through. His career became a combination of goals, assists, trophies, and moments that fans still talk about today. And eventually, he completed the one achievement people had argued about for years, winning the World Cup with Argentina. At that point, for many fans, the debate was over. Messi had reached the top. But then there's Ronaldo. Ronaldo's story was almost the opposite. He built himself into one of football's greatest goal scorers through an almost ridiculous level of discipline, speed, power, heading, finishing, and that famous mentality of always wanting more. Even when people thought his best years were behind him, he kept scoring. And that's what made the Messi Ronaldo era so special. They didn't just become legends. They stayed at the top for an unbelievably long time. And then Lamine Yamal appeared, a teenager playing with the confidence of someone who looks like he's been doing this for 20 years. His left foot, his dribbling, his creativity, and most importantly, his age. That's what makes his story so crazy. While Messi and Ronaldo were already established superstars at his age, Yamal is now creating his own identity on the biggest stages. Here's where people make a mistake. Every time a young player becomes special, people immediately say, he's the next Messi. But why? Why does every young star have to become somebody else's version? Yamal doesn't need to become Messi. He doesn't need to become Ronaldo. He can become Yamal. And that's probably the most exciting part, because Messi and Ronaldo's era was about 2 players competing against each other. The next era could be completely different. Yamal could be competing with players who haven't even become famous yet. Think about how crazy this is. One generation had Messi and Ronaldo. Then came players like Mbappe and Haaland. And now Yamal is becoming one of the faces of the next generation. Football is basically passing the microphone. But here's the problem. Messi and Ronaldo haven't completely disappeared from the conversation. Their records are still there. Their fans are still there. And every time they do something extraordinary, people start comparing them with the new generation again. That's the question nobody can answer yet. Maybe it's Yamal. Maybe it's Mbappe. Maybe it's Haaland. Or maybe another teenager we've barely heard of today will become the next superstar. That's the beauty of football. Messi and Ronaldo gave football almost 20 years of unforgettable moments. And now a new generation is waiting to take over. Yamal is already knocking on the door. But whether he becomes the face of football for the next decade, only time will tell. So tell me, are we watching the beginning of the Yamal era? Or is it still too early to say goodbye to Messi and Ronaldo?